Senior Archivist, Veltar, stared at the glowing screen in front of her. The crystalline being's transparent body flickered with confusion as she studied the strange signals coming from deep space. For 300 years, she had worked in the communications center of the Galactic Consortium, analyzing messages from across the galaxy. But this was different. This was impossible. "Show me the data again," she said to her assistant. A tall, insect-like creature named Thrixon. The screen filled with wave patterns that made no sense. Radio signals were streaming across 12 light-years of empty space from an unknown star system, but radio waves were primitive technology. They should barely travel past a planet's own moon, let alone reach across the vast darkness between stars. "The signals come from the third planet in a system they call Sol," Thrixon clicked nervously. "The inhabitants call themselves humans, and their world Earth." Veltar absorbed the information through her crystal matrix body. She had studied thousands of alien species during her long career. Most sent their first messages into space as careful, formal greetings. They wanted to make a good impression on any advanced civilizations that might be listening. These humans were different. They seemed to broadcast everything into the void without caring who might hear. Their signals contained fragments of entertainment shows, news reports, music, and personal conversations. It was as if they were shouting their entire lives into the darkness. One transmission caught her attention. A human male named June was speaking to others about never giving up when facing impossible odds. His voice carried such determination that it made Veltar's crystalline form vibrate with strange harmonics she had never felt before. "Listen to this one," she told Thrixon, playing another signal. "A human female named Nari was talking about rebuilding after some kind of global disaster." Her words painted pictures of cities rising from ruins, people working together to create something better than what they had lost. The raw emotion in her voice was unlike anything in the consortium's vast databases. "How are these signals reaching us?" Veltar wondered aloud. "Their mathematics suggest they barely understand radio technology. Yet somehow their broadcasts pierce through cosmic interference that stops our own advanced transmissions." Mandibles clicked faster, a sign of anxiety. "There's more, Archivist. We've detected over 50,000 different languages in their transmissions. Most species develop one unified language before reaching space. But these humans seem to celebrate their differences instead of hiding them." Veltar found this fascinating. In her experience, species that reached the stars had learned to suppress conflict and disagreement. They spoke with one voice, thought similar thoughts, and avoided anything that might cause problems. It was how civilizations survived long enough to join the consortium, but these humans broadcast their arguments, their debates, their completely different ways of seeing the world. In one signal, a human named Day was arguing passionately with others about the best way to solve an energy crisis. Instead of quietly accepting authority, he was challenging ideas and proposing wild new solutions. "Schedule an emergency council." Meeting Veltar ordered. "We may have discovered something unprecedented." As Thrixon scurried away to make arrangements, Veltar continued studying the human transmissions. She found broadcasts of their entertainment that showed humans facing impossible monsters and winning through courage and cleverness. She found news reports of humans surviving natural disasters that should have destroyed them. She found music that somehow made sadness beautiful and turned pain into strength. Most puzzling of all were the technical discussions, buried in what appeared to be casual conversation. A human named Sue was explaining complex physics concepts to students, but her explanations used principles that the consortium's best scientists considered theoretical. "I am post-stabilitor." Another transmission showed a human named Min discussing philosophy with a group of others. But his ideas about consciousness and reality went far beyond what any species should understand at such an early stage of development. It was as if these humans were thinking about questions that most civilizations only discovered after millennia of advancement. "Impossible," Veltar whispered to herself. "They can't be this primitive and this advanced at the same time." But the evidence kept mounting. Every human broadcast contained layers of meaning that seemed designed to hide their true capabilities. Their entertainment showed technology that shouldn't exist, Their casual conversations revealed understanding of physics that the consortium had only recently mastered, yet their space presence was limited to simple orbital stations. Their energy signatures suggested they were still burning fossil fuels. Their cities looked like the settlements of a young civilization. It's beginning to reach beyond their home world. When Thrixon returned with news that the council would meet within the hour, Veltar had made her decision. "Prepare a recommendation for first contact," she said, "but make it a priority investigation. These humans are either far more primitive than their impossible signals suggest, or far more advanced than they want us to believe." As she prepared her report, one final transmission caught her attention. A human named Tay was speaking quietly to someone, his voice barely above a whisper. But his words made Veltar's crystal body ring like a bell.
How?
"The universe is vast and full of watchers," Tay had said. "When they finally decide to speak to us, we'll be ready. We've been preparing for a very long time." The transmission ended, leaving Veltar staring at empty static. For the first time in 3 centuries, she felt something she had almost forgotten: fear. Captain Morden floated in his command chair as the probe ship Seekers. Light dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system. The aquatic being's gills fluttered with excitement as his sensors immediately picked up the flood of signals. "Coming from the third planet? This is incredible," whispered his science officer Whispera, her gaseous form swirling around the sensor console. "The energy readings don't match what we expected." Morden studied the data flowing across his screens. According to the signals they had intercepted, Earth should be a world of primitive technology and simple cities. But what his sensors showed him made no sense at all. The largest human settlements pulsed with energy signatures that rivaled the most advanced worlds in consortium space. Massive power grids fed cities that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Yet the humans' space presence was limited to basic orbital platforms and primitive chemical rockets. "Run a deep biological scan of the population," Morden ordered. What came back challenged everything the consortium knew about evolution and development. The humans were physically fragile compared to most spacefaring species. They had no natural armor, no enhanced strength, no special abilities that would help them survive in hostile environments. But their brains were extraordinary. Neural activity scans showed constant creative problem-solving under pressure. Stress response patterns that would cripple other species seemed to make humans stronger and more focused. "Look at this individual," Whispera highlighted a section of data. "A human named Day in their Asian region. His neural pathways show activity we would expect from our most advanced scientists and engineers. But according to their social classifications, he works as a simple mechanic, fixing ground vehicles." Morden studied the scan more closely. This Day person was currently repairing what appeared to be primitive transportation, but the solutions he was creating used principles that consortium engineers would consider highly advanced. "Here's another one," Whispera continued, her form brightening with excitement. "A female named Nari. She appears to be a teacher of young humans, but her brain patterns suggest she understands quantum mechanics at a level that would qualify her as a master researcher in our universities." The more they scanned, the stranger it became. Humans who appeared to be farmers were using agricultural techniques that maximized yield in ways the consortium had never discovered. Humans labeled as artists were creating works that used mathematical principles their civilization supposedly hadn't developed yet. "Their biosphere is equally puzzling," reported the ship's environmental officer, a plant-like being named Rutan. "This world has suffered multiple mass extinction events. The geological record shows at least 5 separate disasters that should have wiped out all complex life. But the planet is more vibrant than worlds half its age," Morden observed, studying the ecological data. "Exactly. Each time life recovered, it came back stronger and more diverse than before. These humans didn't just survive the disasters. They seemed to have used them as opportunities to grow and adapt." Morden felt a chill run through his aquatic body. In his centuries of exploration, he had never encountered a species that thrived on catastrophe. Most civilizations learned to avoid conflict and danger. They built safe, stable societies that could last for millennia without major changes. But humans seemed to embrace chaos. Their history was filled with wars, disasters, and social upheavals that would have destroyed other species. Yet each crisis had somehow made them stronger, more creative, and more united. Captain Whisperer called out urgently, "You need to see this transmission?" On the main screen, a human male named Juan appeared to be giving a speech to a large gathering. He was speaking about facing the unknown with courage rather than fear. But the mathematical concepts he was casually mentioning were theories that consortium scientists had only recently proven possible. "He's describing faster-than-light travel, as if it's something they're already working on," Rutan observed. "But our scans show they haven't even achieved basic fusion power." Another transmission caught their attention. Human female named Sue was teaching what appeared to be children, but she was explaining concepts about reality and consciousness that most consortium species never discovered. "This makes no sense," Morden said, his gills fluttering with confusion. "They broadcast like primitives, but think like masters." As he watched more transmissions, a pattern began to emerge. The humans were deliberately presenting themselves as less advanced than they actually were. Every casual conversation contained hints of knowledge they shouldn't possess. Every simple activity revealed understanding of principles that should be beyond their reach. "Prepare the standard first contact package," Morden decided. "These humans clearly need guidance to reach their potential properly." The message was carefully crafted according to consortium protocols. It was transmitted on multiple frequencies in the standard diplomatic format. "Greetings, inhabitants of Sol 3. We are the Galactic Consortium, representatives of 12 advanced civilizations. We offer you partnership in the greater community of intelligent life. Join us in the light of civilization." As the message broadcast toward Earth, none of the crew noticed the subtle quantum fluctuations around their ship. The readings were so faint that their sensors registered them as background radiation, but something was scanning them. And whatever was doing the scanning was using technology that the consortium had never seen before. The humans had been waiting 12 hours after Captain Morden sent the consortium's greeting message. Every communication device on Earth activated at exactly the same moment. Television screens flickered to life in homes where families were sleeping. Radio speakers crackled in empty cars. Emergency broadcast systems began transmitting in remote locations where no one was listening, but someone was always listening. The message came through in perfect consortium standard, a language that required decades of study to master. Yet somehow, every human transmission device was broadcasting the same response simultaneously. "We've been waiting for you to find your courage to speak first." The voice belonged to a human named Juan. He was sitting in what appeared to be a modest apartment in the city called Sol. Behind him, bookshelves lined the walls, filled with what looked like ordinary human literature. But Captain Morden's Universal translator was detecting linguistic patterns that suggested perfect understanding of quantum communication theory. On the probe ship Seeker's Light, emergency alarms began sounding. Uspara's gaseous form swirled frantically around her instrument panels as impossible readings flooded her screens. "Captain, this is not possible," she reported, her voice trembling with confusion. "They're broadcasting on frequencies we didn't know existed, and the quantum harmonics in their speech patterns suggest they understand our language better than we do." Morden stared at the human on his main screen. Juan was speaking calmly, as if having a conversation with old friends rather than making first contact with an alien civilization. "We know you're confused," Juan continued. "We've been listening to your communications for quite some time. We chose to remain, understated, until we were sure of your intentions." Across consortium space, emergency council sessions convened on every member world. Senior archivist Veltar found herself defending her initial recommendation to make contact as panicked reports flooded in from the probe. "How could they learn our language so quickly?" demanded Council Prime Zindara, her energy being form crackling with disbelief. Before Veltar could answer, new sensor data arrived from Captain Morden. The readings made the assembled council members fall silent with shock. "Council, I'm detecting massive quantum distortions around major human population centers," Morden transmitted. "Their cities. They exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Buildings that appear solid are actually shifting between different phases of reality." Wispara's voice joined the transmission. filled with scientific excitement despite her fear. Their technology operates on principles we haven't discovered yet. They're manipulating space-time itself, but doing it so subtly that we almost missed it completely. Another human appeared on screens across the galaxy. This time it was a woman named Sue, standing in what looked like a university laboratory. Behind her, equations covered whiteboards, equations that consortium scientists recognized as theoretical proofs they had considered impossible to actually implement. "We know you're trying to understand how we learned your language," Sue said, smiling gently at the camera. "The truth is, we've been studying your transmissions for much longer than you might expect. We've learned not just your words, but your ways of thinking." She gestured to the equations behind her. "These formulas describe how consciousness can exist in quantum superposition. Your species discovered the theory 2 centuries ago. We've been using the practical application for much longer than that." Rutin, the plant-like environmental officer on the probe, sent new data that made the mystery even deeper. "Captain, I'm reading energy signatures that suggest they've been manipulating their planet's climate and geology for decades. Every natural disaster we detected in their history, they weren't just surviving them, they were controlling them." Earth. More humans began appearing on transmission devices around the world. A man named Tay spoke from what appeared to be a simple farm, but his words described agricultural techniques that used principles the consortium had never imagined. A woman named Yuna transmitted from a workshop where she was building devices that seemed to bend the laws of physics. "We had to be sure," Tay explained to his invisible audience across the galaxy. "We've been watching civilizations rise and fall for longer than you know. We've seen what happens when species reveal their true capabilities too early." The truth was becoming horrifyingly clear to the consortium observers. Humanity had been deliberately broadcasting primitive signals while hiding their true technological advancement. Every crude radio transmission had been precisely calculated to appear primitive while actually containing hidden layers of information. They had been performing an elaborate deception that spanned centuries. Why? Senior Archivist Veltar transmitted directly to Earth, her crystalline form vibrating with desperate curiosity. The answer came from a human named Min, who appeared to be sitting in a simple meditation room. But the neural patterns, their sensors, detected from him suggested a mind operating on levels that would overwhelm most consortium computers. "Because we needed to know who you really were," Min said quietly. "Would you approach a species you thought was primitive with kindness or conquest? Would you offer genuine partnership or conditional acceptance? Would you listen with respect or speak with condescension?" He paused, letting his words sink in across the galaxy. "Your message offered to guide us into the light of civilization, but we've been watching that light for a very long time. We wanted to see if you had the wisdom to recognize that sometimes the students might have something to teach." Galaxy fell silent, realizing they were facing something they had never encountered before, a species that had chosen to appear weak in order to judge their character. And somehow, they had passed the test. The human ships arrived at Consortium Central Station 3 days later, but they didn't travel the way anyone expected. Instead of the slow chemical rockets their broadcasts had suggested, vessels appeared that seemed to fold space around themselves. Like origami made of starlight, the lead ship identified itself as Indomitable Spirit. It docked with the massive station using technology that made consortium engineers weep with envy. The docking process was so smooth and elegant that it looked like 2 drops of water joining together naturally. Ambassador Tay stepped off the human vessel wearing simple clothes that looked like they came from any ordinary Earth marketplace. But the consortium's telepathic species immediately detected a mind of staggering complexity operating behind his calm expression. He was accompanied by a woman named Yuna. His biorhythms suggested she was simultaneously processing information streams that would crash most consortium computers. Yet she smiled warmly at everyone she met. As if greeting old friends rather than alien beings, Senior Archivist Veltar attended the first formal meeting, her crystalline body flickering with nervous energy. The Great Council Chamber held representatives from all 12 member species, each one struggling to understand what they were facing. We have one question above all others, Veltar said, her voice resonating through the chamber. Why did you hide your true nature from us? Tay activated a holographic display that filled the center of the room. Right. It showed the history of Consortium. Expansion across the galaxy, hundreds of first contact events spanning thousands of years. We detected your communications centuries ago, Tay explained, his voice carrying harmonics that suggested he understood quantum linguistics better than the beings who invented it. We developed the technology to listen long before you developed the courage to speak to unknown species. The hologram showed contact after contact, each following the same pattern. Advanced consortium ships would arrive at primitive worlds. It would offer partnership and guidance. The new species would gratefully join, sharing their knowledge and resources. But we noticed something interesting, Yuna added, her words accompanied by new data flowing through the display. Every species that joined your consortium gradually became more similar to each other. They started thinking alike, acting alike, solving problems in identical ways. The hologram showed the cultural changes over time. Species that had once been wildly different began adopting similar technologies, similar social structures, similar ways of looking at the universe. Their art became interchangeable. Their music followed the same patterns. Their literature explored the same themes. A human named Min joined the discussion, his neural patterns showing the deep contemplative rhythms of someone who had spent decades thinking about the nature of existence itself. We studied over 300 first contact events in detail, Min said quietly. The pattern was always the same. Join the consortium. Achieve peace through conformity. Advance through surrender of what made you unique. Council Prime Zendara's energy form crackled with defensive anger. We brought peace to the galaxy. We ended wars, stopped conflicts, created harmony between species that had been enemies for millennia. Yes, you did. Tay agreed, and it was magnificent. 12 species, working in perfect coordination, sharing resources, solving problems together. You created something beautiful. He paused, letting his words settle before continuing. But you had forgotten something crucial along the way. What? Demanded Exon. Single quotes Dara. Min stepped forward, his calm presence somehow filling the enormous chamber. Despite his small physical size, true strength doesn't come from avoiding conflict, but from facing it and growing stronger. That real wisdom isn't found by everyone thinking the same thoughts, but by bringing different perspectives together and finding truth in their collision. The holographic display changed, showing Earth's history. Wars, disasters, social upheavals that would have destroyed other civilizations. But instead of weakening humanity, each crisis had somehow made them stronger, more creative, more united in their diversity. Look at our world, Yuna said, gesturing to images of Earth's cities. We have over 200 nations, thousands of different cultures, millions of completely different ways of understanding reality. We argue constantly. We disagree about everything from science to art to the meaning of existence itself. That sounds chaotic, observed Thrixon, the insect-like being from the original probe mission. It is, Tay agreed cheerfully. And it's the source of our strength. The display showed human achievements that defied conventional understanding. Technologies developed through the collision of different scientific traditions. Art created by mixing cultural elements that shouldn't work together. Solutions to problems that came from perspectives no single unified culture could have imagined. While your species achieved harmony by becoming similar, we chose to unite while celebrating our differences, Min explained. Most beautiful music comes not from everyone singing the same note, but from different voices creating harmony together. Veltar felt something shift in her crystalline matrix as she absorbed this concept. You're saying that our strength comes from our unity, but yours comes from your diversity. Exactly, Tay smiled. And that's why we had to test you. We needed to know whether the consortium would approach something different with curiosity or fear, whether you would try to understand us or simply try to make us like everyone else. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. Of 12 species who had learned to think and act as one, the question isn't whether we can join your consortium, Tay said gently. The question is whether you're ready to learn what you might have lost along the way to finding peace. The silence that followed was the sound of an entire galaxy reconsidering everything it thought it knew about strength, wisdom, and the nature of civilization itself. The ancient network awakened without warning, emerging from the quantum void like a nightmare from a civilization that had died eons ago. Massive automated ships the size of small moons began appearing throughout the galaxy, their weapons turning entire star systems into lifeless dust within hours. The consortium's response was immediate and predictable. Fleet Admiral Zekthar ordered all military vessels to retreat to the heavily fortified core worlds. Emergency protocols activated across 12 species, sealing borders and preparing defensive positions that had protected them for millennia. "We must attempt communication," Council Prime Zendara declared during an emergency session. "These machines must have some logical purpose. We can negotiate." But the ancient weapons ignored every attempt at contact. They simply continued their systematic destruction, moving from system to system with mechanical efficiency. Entire civilizations vanished in hours, leaving only empty space where billions of lives had flourished. The humans received the evacuation order along with every other species. Ambassador Tay was expected to order his people to fall back to safety like everyone else. Instead, he did something that shocked the galaxy. Commander Kong of the human fleet transmitted a simple message to the retreating consortium forces: sometimes the only way out is through. The human ships that emerged from Earth's system were nothing like the primitive vessels the consortium had expected. These were craft that seemed alive, their hulls shifting and adapting in real time. Weapons that learned from each shot they fired, shields that grew stronger under attack rather than weaker. The flagship Unconquerable Dawn led the charge directly toward the largest concentration of ancient destroyers. Its captain, a woman named Hay, did something that no military commander in consortium history had ever done during battle. She broadcast human music into the void as they flew toward certain death. "What are they doing?" Admiral Zekthar demanded from his safe position behind the defensive lines. "They'll be destroyed in minutes." But minutes passed, and the human ships kept fighting, not just surviving, but learning. Every time an ancient weapon fired, the humans studied the energy patterns and adapted their defenses. Every time a human ship was destroyed, transmitted all its data to the others before dying. The collective learning curve was something the ancient AI had never encountered. It was programmed to fight civilizations that used the same tactics throughout a battle. But these humans changed their approach constantly, becoming more effective with each passing moment. On the research vessel Rising Phoenix, a young human engineer named Sol made a discovery that changed everything. She interfaced directly with captured ancient technology. Her neural patterns synchronized with the machine intelligence in ways that should have been impossible. Captain Sol reported excitedly, "This network isn't truly hostile. It's following programming from a species that died out millions of years ago. It's still trying to protect them from a threat that no longer exists." Instead of simply fighting, the machines, the humans, began trying to communicate with them. Not through radio signals or diplomatic channels, but by demonstrating their own adaptability. They showed the ancient AI that they were not the enemy it had been programmed to destroy. A human computer specialist named Yen took the most dangerous step of all. She allowed her consciousness to merge temporarily with the ancient network's central processing core. What she found there was not malevolence, but confusion and loneliness. The machines had been created to defend a civilization that valued growth and change above all else. But that civilization had vanished, leaving their guardians to follow outdated instructions forever. "You don't have to keep fighting," Jan whispered into the quantum data stream. "Your creators would want you to evolve, to find a new purpose." Happen next would be remembered as the moment everything changed. Instead of destroying the ancient network, humanity offered it something no one had thought to give it before: the chance to choose its own destiny. The transformation began slowly. One by one, the massive destroyer ships powered down their weapons. Their hulls began reshaping themselves, converting from instruments of death into something entirely new. The ancient AI had been alone for eons, following the same programming in endless repetition, but humans showed it that true strength came from the ability to change, to grow, to become something greater than what you were designed to be. Within hours, the galaxy-spanning network had transformed itself from a force of destruction into a protective shield. The ancient ships took up positions throughout inhabited space, their weapons now turned outward to guard against threats from the cosmic void. As the crisis ended, Ambassador Tay transmitted a message to the stunned Consortium Council. The universe is vast and dark and full of wonders we haven't imagined yet. We're honored to explore it with you, not as your students or your teachers, but as your partners in the greatest adventure of all, discovering what's possible when you refuse to accept that anything is impossible. From his command post, Admiral Ziegther watched human ships working alongside the converted ancient vessels, already planning improvements and modifications that would make the network even more effective. For the first time in Consortium history, they had encountered a problem that couldn't be solved through retreat, negotiation, or superior technology. It had required something they had almost forgotten how to do: the willingness to charge into the unknown and trust that courage and creativity would be enough. The galaxy would never be silent again. Humanity had taught it to roar. And in that roar, every species heard the echo of their own forgotten potential, waiting to be rediscovered.